Hey everyone, welcome back to another lesson. So in this one, we're going to continue to practice and we're going to basically create the other side of what we did in the previous, in the previous video. So if you remember in the previous video, we did we finished the encryption function essentially, right? Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually create the decryption function, and it's pretty much the same thing if you think about it. It's just the opposite side. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to, and also we're going to do one more thing as well. So let's actually go over the tasks here. So first we're going to create a different function called decrypt that takes the ciphertext and shift as inputs, right? And then inside the decrypt function, shift each letter of the ciphertext backwards based on the shift amount and print the decrypted text, right? And again, as you see, this is pretty much the opposite side. And finally, check if the user wanted to encrypt or decrypt the message by checking the direction variable. Then call the correct function based on that direction variable. So again, guys, if you remember in the beginning, we asked for three values: direction, and then text or the message, whatever they're entering, and then the shift. So what we want to do is now we want to actually make this a useful thing. So now when they actually type encode or decode, they will actually enter different functions or get to different functions and do different things. So let's go ahead and actually start creating this. So the first thing I'm going to do, let's actually do this between, between this, because we're going to be using this. I'm going to tell you why. But let's actually create our function. So I'm just going to say define, right? Decrypt, and we're going to say cipher. And again, we want to enter the parameters of our function. And one of the things I'd like to point out here, because it's going to get a little bit confusing, is that we're like moving forward, we're going to be using a lot of same kind of variables here. So I'm going to, for example, for the decrypt, I'm going to use the ciphertext and also shift amount. But one of the things that you want to remember is that what we're entering here, the shift amount and ciphertext, are actually different from what we have here. So this is a variable, right? I just want to point this out. This is a variable. It has a value, but this is actually just the the parameter of this function. This is not a variable. So although they look similar, right, but they're actually very different things. So I hope that makes sense, because we're going to be kind of using the same things. For example, shift amount, I want to use them here as well, but and also we have like we've used the shift amount here as a parameter as well. So just want to point it out, guys. We're using kind of same wording here, but they are different. Just keep that in mind. So we're gonna go ahead and start by doing our first thing, which is again doing the same thing that we did here, the ciphertext, but this time we're actually doing plain text, right? So I'm just gonna say plain text. And for this, what we're going to do is we're going to go with again, same thing, empty string, right? So again, it's going to be an empty text to store the decrypted text, right? It's an empty value. So now let's go ahead and start our for loop. I'm going to say for letter in ciphertext. So what we're going to, again, this is basically looping through each letter in the text, all right? So now when we loop through it, we're going to first of all get the position, right? So we're going to say position equals alphabet index. So we're again going back to our index method and letter. So again, what we're doing here is that we're getting the index of each letter in the alphabet. So again, this like encrypted message that they're going to enter, we're going to get the index letter, basically the location of each of the letters based on this alphabet that we have available here, right? So that's basically what we're doing first, right? And then we're going to get the new position. So the way we do this, again, new position, same thing, but this time we're going to do something different. We're going to say position, because the position that we're getting here is actually the encrypted position, right? So we're going to say position minus shift amount. So this means that now we're going backwards instead of going forward, right? Like, because in the encrypted function where we're going forward, basically adding the shift amount, but now we're actually taking it out. So this is basically shift the index by the shift amount, but we're going backwards. So now our new letter is going to equal alphabet, and we're going to say new position. So now what we have here is that we got the new letter, the encrypted or decrypted letter, based on the position based on the position amount that the user entered, right? So finally, we're just going to add the new letter to the decrypted text. So we're just going to say plain text equals or plus equals, right? And new letter. So just like that, we got our, decrypted function. Very, very, very simple. All right, so finally what we're going to do is we're going to basically print, and we're going to use an F string. So we're just going to say the decoded text is plain text. Perfect. So just like that, we figured out basically how we basically used the new position to find the new letters, the decrypted letters, and fix this problem. All right, so we are pretty much done with the function. Now what we're going to do is we're going to check if the user wanted to encrypt or decrypt the message by checking the direction variable. Now this is another important thing that we're going to do. If you remember, as I said, we're going to essentially ask if they want to encode or decode, and that's something we can do actually by basically calling these functions and using an if statement, right? So we're going to say if direction equals encode, we're going to say, and we're going to actually pull this up. So here we go. So if the direction is encode, we're going to pull this encryption function, right? There you go. It's going to call the encrypt function, and we're going to say elif, and basically everything else, direction equals decode. And if that's a decode, if they're requesting a decode, what we're going to do is we're going to decrypt, and basically again we're going to call the decrypt function. I'm just going to copy this real quick, and we're going to say decrypt. And if you remember, the value of the decrypt ciphertext is going to equal text. Here we go. And the shift amount is same thing. So the shift amount equals shift. So just like that, we're going to call, I'm just going to add the comment here. We're going to call the decrypt function. So now if I save this and run this, let's actually see what happens. So type encode and decode. So I'm just going to encode first. So let's go ahead and use my name, Sean, and type the shift number 5. And there you go. We got our decoded message or encoded message. So let's actually go decode it one more time, run it one more time. So I'm just going to say decode and type the message. There's our message, shift number 5. And there you go. Back to Sean. So perfect. So now our function or our program is decoding and encoding a message. Now it's time to actually make it more cleaner and organize it a little bit, which is something we'll talk about in the next lesson. Thank you so much, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Make sure you practice this. And also, by the way, the complete file is going to include the comments like the previous one, because I want you guys to actually look at the comments and understand it. So like one way, if you are a little bit confused about like how this whole thing works, you can actually look at the comments and understand it a little bit better. Let me know if you have any questions. If not, I'll see you in the next lesson.